When a loved one passes away, families are already carrying pain, stress, and many questions. One of those questions may be, what happens to the money in the person's retirement fund? For many families, this can be confusing. Some people believe the money will go straight to the person named on a form. Others think it will simply go into the estate. But in South Africa, that is not always what happens. There is a law called Section 37C of the Pension Funds Act. This law helps decide how a retirement fund death benefit must be shared after a member dies. The purpose of this law is to protect people who depended on the deceased person for support. In simple words, the law tries to make sure that people who relied on the deceased are not left with nothing. The first important thing to know is this. When the benefit becomes payable because of the member's death, the money does not automatically go to one named person, and it does not automatically become part of the estate. Instead, the retirement fund trustees have a legal duty to investigate. They must try to find out who the dependents are, who was nominated on forms, and what would be fair in the circumstances. So, who can be a dependent? A dependent can be a husband or wife. A dependent can be a child. A dependent can also be another family member or person who depended on the deceased for support. In some cases, a person may not have had a formal legal right to support, but they were still relying on the deceased in real life. That kind of real support can also matter. This is why trustees do not just look at one paper and stop there. They must try to understand the real family situation. Now let us talk about nomination forms. A member of a retirement fund can fill in a beneficiary nomination form. This is very important because it tells the fund who the member wanted to be considered. But a nomination form is not always the final answer. It guides the trustees, but it does not force them to pay the full benefit to that one person only. Trustees must still look at all dependents and decide on a fair and reasonable distribution. This can surprise families. A person may say, "But my name is on the form." Another person may say, "But I was supported by the deceased every month." Under Section 37C, the trustees must look at the bigger picture. When trustees make their decision, they may consider the age of the people involved, the relationship to the deceased, the level of financial dependence, the future needs of the dependents, and the wishes of the deceased. They may also look at whether a child is still young, whether an elderly parent was receiving support, or whether someone in the household has no other income. The goal is not simply to divide the money quickly. The goal is to divide it fairly. This process can take time. The fund may need time to trace dependents, collect documents, speak to family members, and understand the facts properly. That is one reason why payment may not happen immediately after death. Families should know that investigation is an important part of the process. This is also why it is so important for members to keep their details updated while they are alive. Make sure your beneficiary nomination form is current. Make sure your family knows where you worked and which retirement fund you belong to. Make sure important documents can be found when needed. It is also wise to be honest and clear about the people who depend on you financially. This can help reduce confusion and delays later. For families, it is important to ask questions early, keep copies of documents, and stay in contact with the employer or the retirement fund when a member passes away. If you are a spouse, child, parent, partner, guardian, or another person who depended on the deceased, you may need to provide information so the fund can understand your situation. The most important message is this. Section 37C is there to protect dependents. It tries to make sure that people who truly relied on the deceased are properly considered. So, if you remember only 3 things, remember this. Number 1, the money does not automatically go only to the person named on the form. Number 2, trustees must investigate and look for dependents. Number 3, the aim is fairness and protection for those who depended on the deceased. If you are unsure about your own situation, speak to your retirement fund, your employer, or a trusted financial advisor for help. Knowing this information can help families prepare better, ask the right questions, and avoid misunderstandings during a very difficult time.